When curation first came around, it was approximately in 530 BC in an ancient Mesopotamian city-state called Ur. The king at the time was Nabonidus, and he had a fascination with history, which led him to send people out on excavations to discover lost texts and ancient artifacts from their people's history. Needing a place to keep all his new finds, he got his daughter, the priestess of the moon deity Sin, Inagaldinana, to help him keep track of everything. Her job was to gather the artifacts and work on arranging and labeling them. In 1925, Sir Charles Leonard Woolley and his team were excavating at Ur, and they found all of Inagaldinana's collections neatly assembled together and perfectly labeled. Curation started to take on different forms as it evolved. In ancient Rome, they were senior civil servants overseeing the empire's bathhouses, aqueducts, and sewers. During the medieval period, the curatus was a priest devoted to the care of souls. The Renaissance era saw curators as newspaper editors in charge of the collection of newspapers. A lot of the times, curators are seen working in museums. Museums were first places of learning, education, and discovery. During the early Renaissance, people didn't go to museums anymore. It was mostly just the Vatican that was being used for museum purposes. By the 16th century, it started to become popular for people to own large collections of artifacts just to own them. And by the 18th century, museums started to become more popular again. Scientific progress and knowledge about the world increased interest in creating larger public galleries. This caused competition between museums, and eventually specific types of museums came around, so there wasn't that much competition anymore.
Preserving and exhibiting objects from the past. Curators, conservators, and museum technicians work to inspire and teach audiences today. They oversee and care for collections of artwork and historic items and conduct education programs for an institution. Curators, or museum directors, negotiate the purchase, sale, and loan of collections. They're often experts in a particular field, such as botany, art, or history, and may authenticate and categorize the specimens in a collection. Curators also manage research and educational programs and represent their institution at events and in the media. Museum technicians protect, document, and oversee the transportation of museum and collection objects. They also answer questions from the public and help curators and outside scholars use the museum's collections. Conservators research and preserve works of art and artifacts. They usually specialize in a type of object, such as books, paintings, or architectural material. Conservators use a variety of methods to study objects and reverse years of wear. Curators, museum technicians, and conservators work full-time in museums, historical sites, governments, colleges, and universities, as well as corporations. Curator and conservator positions typically require a master's degree in a field such as museum studies, conservation, or art history, while museum technicians usually have a related bachelor's degree. Candidates with internship or volunteer experience in archives or museums are more competitive.
Now we have museums such as the Louvre that collect paintings, and the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum that has a collection of aviation and space artifacts.
Public history is kind of what you said, Delaney, what you're interested in, possibly being a curator someday. It's how history is presented to or presented by public audiences. Okay, so kind of taking history off of the college campus, and it can encompass a number of things. It's not just books, academic monographs, or journal articles, but I mean, you can see public history in preservation projects. You can see public history in podcasts. You can see public history in any museum or archive or historical society, or historic trail perhaps outside. I mean, there's like so many possibilities.
There are certain curators that are equipped for each area of study. A curator can do many things, such as be a pop festival programmer because they are in charge of collection of bands at the festival. or even a fashion stylist who's in charge of clothing and displaying it on models.